All right, so we're live.
Okay, we're live.
You know what the episode's going to be about?
Let me guess. Parrots.
Well, it does start with a P.
Yeah, that's
Over
where I
here.
took my cue from.
See, if he would have been on here, he would have seen.
Yeah. And see, that's what that means. Parrots are trying really intricate. No, okay, it went away.
So,
Oh, that's right. We're live. I'm sorry.
well, that takes care of the background business, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I've got a couple of things to mention to you.
Okay.
So one of them is that I found this extraordinary, and it raises a lot of questions in my mind, and I was curious to see what you and the folks out there think
Okay.
about this particular scenario and the things that that are the ideas that come from it. So there was a lady in London that decided to her and her friends get together in her loft, and they're not necessarily high-end artists, if that's a thing or whatnot, but
Hmm.
they started painting paintings and in different techniques and sort of like whatever.
Okay.
They rented out a little nook in the wall, sort of like a warehouse, whatever, and
Okay.
they opened up a gallery for like an evening,
Okay.
and they priced it at the prices that they so chose. She titled it, fake gallery, to see if people would purchase.
Okay.
And people did purchase. They'd see that the gallery would they go in, and the prices on the paintings were this amount, that amount, and people started purchasing them. I mean, they didn't sell everything, but they sold enough. Now, it was for a charity that they did this
Okay.
for, so there was that. But the question in my mind is the question about value, perceived value, what people are willing to pay, and doing something of that sort. Um, people are There's a perception of value and a
Right.
price tag, but in reality, what she did, in my opinion,
Hmm.
applies to even the large art galleries.
Okay.
Not necessarily, let's say, but it's arbitrary in many ways, and if enough people believe it, it is so, as far as value for an item.
Okay.
So that's my thought on that, and that's the story I want to do. What thoughts do you have on that?
Well, I have a couple of questions. Number one, the folks who came into the gallery, fake gallery, they knew this was for charity, correct?
Um, that part I do not think that they did.
You don't think that they knew that it was for
I'm not sure.
charity?
I don't have enough. I don't have enough. There's
Okay.
a video on it,
Okay.
so I'll link it in our um, Trampled Underfoot Podcast Facebook page, so
Okay.
you can check that out for you folks that want to leave us questions. You can go there, and I'll
Okay.
leave that.
Okay. Okay. Maybe we can get a link in the description of this video too. But yeah, because there is a difference. People are more willing to pay. I get your point about perceived value,
Mhm.
but people are more willing to pay a higher price if they know something is for charity for two reasons. Number one, they want to, they want to help.
Yeah,
And number two, my two favorite words, it's deductible. They have something physical, tangible to show, to display, and hang on the wall because obviously they like it or they wouldn't bid on it or they
yeah,
wouldn't buy it. But they can deduct that as a donation to a charity.
yeah. That makes sense.
So, I mean, you see things all the time where I'm not going to name any names because I don't know if he wants to be associated with this type of a discussion, but a well-known celebrity will occasionally auction things off on eBay for charitable for a charitable foundation, and it's all tax deductible, and everybody knows that. But he will have the goofiest things up for auction because somebody gave it to him or he wore it on TV or something like that. And they'll bid up a jacket to like $5,000. when you know the jacket in and of itself was worth maybe at the outside 80, 90 bucks,
Mhm.
But people get into that. They want to donate. It's tax deductible. I'm just going to receive something for it. Now, on the other side of that coin, there is a perceived value of artwork. If, for instance, they didn't know that this was for charity, it's possible that they just thought that they were getting good value for the piece they were buying. So, I mean, everything is subjective. There are people that have paid astronomical amounts for works of art done by people who are still living. And I'm not classing the masters in here. I'm not talking Renoir or Rembrandt or, choose your favorite. We're not talking Picasso here. We're talking people who are living today who have painted something and you see them going for 7, 8 digits. I figure if you have the money to spend on it, what the heck? It's things are only worth what somebody is willing to pay you for them. And if someone likes it that much, wow, go for it.
Salvador Dali was at the, I guess, latter part of his life and work, notorious for, and by the way, at the beginning of his life work in paintings and surrealism and whatnot, he got picked up by a couple of American millionaires that started to acquire his paintings to allow him to continue to paint more, and it propelled him because of that assistance. But later in his life, he was notorious for being brought a stack of like, prints, let's say.
Yeah.
And he just, and each one was money. So he was literally signing what, like, notes, what would be the word, like bonds or something, or he was filling out, and once his signature was on it, it was worth that amount.
Yeah, it was worth thousands. There are some things that people have done. I mean, talking about Salvador Dali, he befriended Harpo Marx and presented him with a harp that was strung with barbed wire and had spoons attached to it for some reason. And I don't know what that thing is worth, but Harpo prized that. That was his prized possession because it was a Dali, presented by the artist.
But there's that value, that you can't. Yeah, I totally agree. So, like, if they make, like, let's say a company makes like 20 million, I don't know, like little caps that for the use of, like, I don't know, covering your toothpaste or whatever, like an additive item that you could, well, it's going to be worth what it's worth, and they acquire their money in the volume of sales and whatnot. But we're talking situations like that you just said, where someone creates something and such a special. But what I wanted to, so if you could sort of, what other thoughts you have in reference to, let's say someone unknown creates art, or something within the thing of the field of, or whatnot, and they place it in a store. Now you have really the right to charge. You could take some clay and put like some sort of like weird thing together and put it in the window and say, okay, and with a tag that says $2,000, you have total right if somebody's willing to pay for it. Well, hey,
sure.
But what about that perception of from something totally unknown? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I don't remember who said it. And I say that a lot, and I really should look these up, but we spring this stuff on one another, and I don't have time to research. But I don't remember who said it, but somebody once said, you are only unknown until someone else says you're not. So they may be unknown to us, but I really honestly couldn't name more than maybe 3 artists living today that are in that league. And I would be hard pressed to name 3, I think. I just don't follow the art world, but there are people out there who do. and they love everything this particular artist does. I mean, right now, look, Jim Dockerell out here in the YouTube live chat is talking about Banksy. Do you remember the thing a couple of years back where one of his pieces, what was it, last year? I think it was, one of his pieces came up for auction. And after the gavel swung, all of a sudden a little switch inside the picture activated. And the picture this guy just paid for just started moving down the frame and came out in shreds at the bottom.
How's
So he's
that?
basically ended up with this empty frame. It was a mechanical device that shredded itself after it was purchased.
They did that on purpose?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, they didn't do it. Banksy did. Nobody knows who Banksy is.
Okay.
Banksy
Now,
is completely anonymous.
Okay, that's bad, dude.
Yeah. Now,
And
I don't know whatever happened.
no, can I throw something in and see what you say?
Go for it.
I would think in a situation like that, once he was granted the purchase and ownership of the property of the said property, if that thing went and shredded itself, it was still in the hands. It was not, the money had changed, but it was not in.
Well, no, the money hadn't changed hands yet. I mean, they were up there auctioning, and sold to the person back there in the corner. Wham! And the guy took it off the wall, and it activated and started shredding right there. So no money had changed hands yet.
I would say that the guy that purchased it or that won that auction would not have been liable for that.
But my point is that I don't remember what the price it sold for, but this person, whoever Banksy is alive.
Okay.
That person evidently saw that much value in that to pay that price for that piece of art. So, there's no accounting for taste. And if somebody wants to give you that much money for something, more power to you. This kind of touches something that's a little bit near and dear to my heart, in that we don't value our time. I mean, you and I are both makers. We know what we do. We know the work that goes into something that we've created.
Oh, do I have thoughts on that?
We know how many hours, this, that, and the other. But because of outside pressures here and there, folks around here won't pay that much for it, and that we sell our time really cheaply. And I think that's a bad precedent to set, because I think our time and our creativity, the years it took us to learn to do that, has value as well. And I think that we're doing it to ourselves.
I agree with you, but there is a catch to that, that you mentioned, which is because of, circumstances, sometimes people have to lower the bar and toss out the item for a lower, cost.
True, but those circumstances can be overcome. And I say it a lot. We are our own biggest roadblocks, in that if we're trying to compete with a big box store, we're going to lose. So I don't even try. I'm not looking for the guy who tells me he can buy that for $10 at the big box store. I don't want him. Go to the big box store. I want the other guy who wanted that custom piece, wanted me to make it. That's who I'm after.
Yeah.
So, and I try to place things where those people shop. And I try to place things where those people go, where they congregate, and, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You can't just walk into a gallery and say, here, I want to hang this in your gallery. What do you think? You have to, there's a lot of politicking and getting to know people and networking involved in all of that. But, that's what I do. I network. I talk to people. I am not afraid to talk to anybody. If I want to sell a guitar stand or 2 or 3, I'll go into a guitar shop and I'll start talking to the owner. I won't talk to the clerk. I'll ask if I can speak with the owner and just talk to him and ask specific questions about commissions. Do you take commissions? And I'll take them something. There's a guitar shop here that has bumper stickers that they give away because the owner says, I love to see my name on other people's cars. So he gives away these bumper stickers. I took one, brought it home, scanned it, and I cut a little CNC sign for him, painted up, took it in, and give it to him. Here you go. You can hang that up behind the. This is cool. You can do this? Yes, I can do that. Well, what else can you do? Whipped out the phone and showed him a couple of guitar stands. I can take a guitar stand in there right now. He'll buy it from me and then sell it. It's that way. It's not trying to push. I'm not trying to make a product and convince people they need it. I'm trying to make the product that they need, and I'm putting it in a place where they're going to see it. And if they don't want it, the $10 stands are over there. But if they want something that doesn't look like a $10 stand, I can help you out.
Yeah.
And I charge accordingly, and I don't have a problem selling them, but I don't want to make guitar stands for the rest of my life. So I'm not out there pumping out the guitar stands,
Yeah.
So it is a lot has to do with exposure, but the way to get exposure is, don't take this wrong, and I know somebody in the chat will. The way to get exposure is to expose yourself. Be in those places where you want your product seen. Talk to people.
Which would be a bad advice if you were one of those trench coat wearing peeping Tom.
That's exactly where I knew somebody was going to take it. But the way to be seen is to get out and be seen. People still go to tangibles. They still go to brick and mortar stores. So,
by the way, the imagery in my head was a guy with one of those fedoras and one of those Inspector Gadget trench coats. Just to let you know.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting. Yeah. So I guess to end, because I've got a secondary question,
Okay.
or something that might evolve into a conversation that you might have, ideas on. I'm sure you've had experiences on for sure, but just to wrap this part of the conversation up. So, going back to that lady with the whole art gallery and whatnot, which ended up here. And so there's also within the whole world of what she did was interesting to me because she's a no-name. She went and did her paintings and then put it up in a gallery. Obviously, she footed some money there. It was for a charity, but putting that to the side, the idea of putting yourself out there, like you just said, now, she wasn't claiming it was paintings from another person, or it was just, these are our paintings and they're worth X amount. But the official sort of the officialness of, if that's a word, of the area and them presenting it as like, hey, you're walking in, these are serious pieces, and was helpful.
Yeah, and and that's why I was wondering if this was something that was organized, and did the patrons know that this was for charity? Because there has to be some form of publicity. I mean, unless they just happened to luck out and ended up in the right place at the right time, because you or I could go down and rent a storefront and put up a sign saying art gallery, and we'd be lucky if we got 3 people in the first month, because it's location. So unless this is publicized, folks don't even know you're there. I mean, we walk down the street or drive down the street and bypass businesses every day, and we don't even know what we're driving by.
That is true. So yeah, you're right about that. Now, so there's that to contend with, but for some reason, I thought of Duval Street in Key West. You have a street in Key West, if you've ever been to Key West, and you can start from one side of Key West and travel all the way down to Duval Street, all the way to the other extreme, and lining that one road. At one end, you have a beach, tiny beach with a couple of hotels and like daiquiri bar and all that. And at the other extreme, you have the docks, like for ships and whatnot.
Sure.
And in between, it's a series of little stores next to little stores, continuously some little museums, some bars, and
Mhm.
you'll see all these little stores selling like mass produced like shirts and this and that.
Sure.
And so that's one thing, right? So people, people are, oh, I need a shirt. Oh, look, it says I'm drunk in Florida. Let's take this home to grandma. And but then you have there on the Wall Street, the Walt. You know that we have woodworking
Yeah.
affinities because I called it the Walt Street. On Duval Street, they should have a DeWalt Street, by the way,
Yeah.
next to Makita, and in the corner of Makita and what's the other brand?
Porter Cable.
And Porter.
Yeah, I'm standing on the corner of Porter and Cable. I need to find Makita Street. Where do I go? You know, Home Depot. No.
So there is a store, or not a store, but there are art sort of stores, right? And they'll have all sorts of stuff in there. And
Right.
every time I've been to Key West, I pass by and stuff. This is a good location because there's plenty of people walking. But you walk into the gallery,
Mhm.
and they have some little items, but then you have these huge pictures. They even had a huge dolphin and sitting in a fountain for sale in the
Uh-huh.
middle of the darn floor. And you're like, when's this thing gonna sell? But there's people for. So you're right about the location.
Right.
So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. I assume they get plenty of customers. I think.
Yeah, they should. But then again, you know this as well as anybody. People walking by do not necessarily mean people going in and buying.
True.
You can be passed by 30,000 people a day and maybe have one person stop and give you a second look. And that doesn't mean that they're going to buy. So if you can place yourself in the area where folks are looking for something and you know what that something is and you can be the one to provide it, you can usually make at least a sale,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Which will
but
cover maybe the rent and the lights if you're lucky.
exactly. So, I don't know, folks for some reason want to ask me for advice on selling, and I say, don't make something and try to convince somebody else that they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Find out what people are asking for and see if you can make that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
All right.
because you have the sale, they already want the item. You don't have to convince them.
Right. That's a whole level of like overcoming objections that you don't have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So we'll close off that part of the discussion if it's okay with you.
That's fine with me. Sure. I'd follow your lead.
So here's the second one, which is totally out of left field.
Okay.
I was thinking about this earlier today, and then earlier today, or you know what? I was actually, as I was waking up, I thought of this. It came to my mind. It was one of those sort of once you wake up, vivid, remembering your dream type deals.
Okay.
So the question and the conversation, see what you think, is going to be based on this life, the loss of innocence.
Okay.
In your life. Little things that occur that give you knowledge as you're coming up, or even later in life. But the one that I'm going to share with you is the initial moment when that bubble of honesty and love was burst into flames for me.
In what kind of a context, though? Because I mean, that could be a multitude of things.
Okay, so innocence and reality.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the story and see if you have one that's or it springs you into something. Or if not, then I guess we could,
Okay.
call it and the end of that conversation. So look, when I was very, very little, very young, I right after, and I can remember a long time back, right after like kindergarten, I used to go to kindergarten down in Flagler Street, just shy of getting into Little Havana area. Okay. I've got photos of the place. It's amazing that I do. Then I was placed in a private school. It was a private Catholic school.
Okay.
And I remember flashes of moments, but there's some things that I remember in an extended amount. And one of those extended situations was the following. At school, we would sit in the class. I guess it would be first grade. What would that be when you first enter? Like,
Yeah.
it would be like first grade, yeah?
Sure. After kindergarten, yeah.
So I'm in first grade, and the teacher's there, the board and stuff, and you have a sense of like I had a sense of like information learning, although it's simple stuff, right? Like
Sure.
1, 2, 3, although we learned that before, but so I had to go to the bathroom, and I raised my hand to go to the bathroom. The teacher said, "Okay, go to the bathroom and come back or whatever." And you just start walking. I know where the bathroom was at, so I was walking down that hall. I could picture the hall. The floors and stuff in the bathroom was straight down the hall off towards the left. And I went into the bathroom. I walk into the bathroom, and I don't know that there were urinals, but there probably were. But I went into the stall because I didn't want anyone to see my dinghy. So, so, so I go into the stall, and I'm peeing, and then I hear another kid in another stall go, "Oh, darn, oh my goodness, what?" Upset and this and that sounding. And like I finish, I'm like, what the heck? And I get out of the stall, and that kid comes out of the stall, and and he's standing there, and it looks like he had tightened the belt, and the belt broke because it was like, you know what I'm saying? Like it just broke, his belt broke. So he's holding part of the belt in his hand. It's like, and I'm like, what happened or whatever. I probably didn't say anything. I don't remember exactly, but I just went on my way back, because what are you going to do? I did my little belt, and I, walked on back to the thing. Then within a little while, I'm back in class. I'm called to the principal's office. I don't know I've never even you're a little kid. I'm not even, the way I was taught. And even back then, there's no knowledge of evil. There's no knowledge of evil. I mean, you could start a fit. Mom, I want quick, or whatever, but that's not like intentional evil and this and that. You're just a little kid. So I get called to the freaking principal's. I go to the principal's office, and I open the door and walk in. I'm a little kid, and the little kid's standing there holding his belt, and the lady is standing. I don't even remember what she was. She was probably a principal or a principal, whatever. That was 2 adults or so. And she said, "You broke his belt, and you that is wrong." And I was like, no, I can't even speak detailed because I'm a little kid, but I recorded it in my brain. This was the first time that I realized, without processing it, a lie.
Yeah.
Someone coming down with the hammer on me. I'm a little kid, not, you don't deserve this.
Yeah.
And the teacher said, "You or whatever, you cannot do that, and that's wrong. So take your belt off and give it to him, and he's going to give you that belt that you broke." And I couldn't defend myself. I was like at the will of these people. Now here's the thing: I grabbed that crappy belt. I had to press the brakes. I went. I grabbed that crappy belt and I sort of tied it around, and that's what I wore the rest of the day until my parents picked me up. At which point, I told my mom in my very limited. I said, "Mom, look my belt," and she says, "What's that?" Because she's the one that bought the belt, right? Like my original belt. And I don't know what the adults talked, but I know that hell was raised, and I know that eventually thereafter I was pulled from that place.
Wow.
So in summary, I learned lies can be told. I learned abuse of power by somebody, but I didn't process it in my mind. Sure. That was a loss of innocence to me, because this was not only a school, and not only was I a little kid, but I was also in a Catholic school where you would think these adults would not judge and jump, because the adult would have said, he's saying that he broke it, but he wouldn't lie. So then he would lie? He couldn't come up with such a story, but he would?
Well, But a thinking adult would have said, "How the hell could Eloy have broken your belt? How could that happen? How did he break your belt? You know, were you guys fighting? Were you wrestling on the floor or something like that?
Right.
What's going on? How could he break your belt?"
Yep. I mean, that's number one.
Yeah. Okay, I kind of see what you're getting at there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I well, having a little brother, I I lost innocence in that regard probably from the time he could talk. So, I didn't do it, Mark did. That was common, Nobody did it, but stuff got done. It all comes around. Having a little brother, he got blamed for stuff he didn't do. I got blamed for stuff I didn't do, but it all kind of came around. I don't know that I ever really had that kind of an awakening to how rotten some people can be. I mean, I can't pinpoint a time, but having worked in some of the careers that I've worked, I've seen the darker side of a lot of people. Not so many that I, lose faith in humanity or anything like that, but enough to where I'm very, you wouldn't know it with me being here online or what have you, but I tend to kind of hang back and watch folks I don't know. I don't really engage. I will talk to somebody anonymously in a supermarket. If we're all standing there in line and something's going on or what have you, sure, I'll talk to somebody like that. But if I'm in a social situation and I don't know a lot of people, I'm kind of picky about who I want to pal around with or befriend because I've been burned too many times.
Yeah.
And I know that some people, not all by any stretch of the imagination, but some people, if they see a perceived weakness or they see an opening, they're ready to take advantage. So I try not to let myself get into that kind of a situation. But I can't really look back and pinpoint any specific time where something like that happened to me and made me realize that there are just bad people out there. I really don't know. I don't have any kind of a story like that.
Let me throw another one at you.
Okay.
And correct something that I said at the in the last one. I don't think that I immediately was taken out because I remember that. Wait, let me think clearly. No, I think that I remained there for a few years. So I think I don't know what happened because my parents didn't come to me and say,
Sure.
"What happened, son, is that the kid was lying and you don't have to worry about." I didn't get any of that. It was like whatever the adults did. But with that said, another time in that same school, and I think it was the following year. Here's where it gets, because I only remember the memory. I can't tell you from one year to the next and stuff, but I remember the memory perfectly.
Yeah.
Or at least the main details. So after school, we would be bussed home in private little minivans, let's say.
Okay.
And the lady that would own the bus, because these are like individuals that purchase a bus and get licensed to take your kids back home and all that. And she, in order to make extra money, she would have like a box of like those lollipops that had the taste of like root beer and this and that. And I'd always get the root beer one. Your mom would give you change, just enough to purchase that and some chips. Plus you had your meal during lunch. Yeah. And after school, we'd be waiting by the cafeteria, which was next to the parking lot in that particular arrangement. I don't even know that school exists anymore, but we'd be sitting there and there were older kids. And there was an older girl that took a liking to me and would always, on the way back on the bus or van, she'd go like tap on the seat so that I'd sit next to her. Okay. I was a little kid. I had no business of falling in love. I had no business of even knowing what sexy, awesome cuteness was, but she had my heart like nobody could say. She would go like that, and she's an older girl, beautiful locks and this and that. And I just sit there as a little kid, and she'd talk to me and stuff, and like I was like, And I was so happy. And every day we'd go back on the bus, she'd sit there and I'd sit right next to her. I was like her little brother probably, but to me,
Yeah.
she was like,
Yeah.
she'd be my lady.
Mhm.
She'd be my lady until that's our arrangement without talking, because I had no actual verbal complexity or skills. Everything was
Sure.
like, and we were sitting there, and all of a sudden, a kid comes in the bus and sits right in the seat in front, turns around and starts talking to her, and they touch each other's hands. And I'm sitting there pissed off. I'm a little turd, right? I'm not even, and they're holding hands, totally ignoring my stuff. And I'm like, who's this dude?
Yeah.
But I have no freaking right to, because I don't know these rules. There was a lesson there.
I don't know, man. Sounds like you got walked on from an early age, dude. Wow. Well, what do you say to that? I mean, I don't have anything to compare to that either. I mean,
How do you? How does a kid? You just accept it as such. But you're like, well, son of a gun.
yeah. Well, a little bit more than that, I'm sure. Who the hell are you?
Yeah,
This is my girl,
dude, I had it all. I had this hot chick. She was like way older than me. She asked me to sit right next to her. The whole ride, and she's always talking to me. Then this guy, old like her, comes up and tries to steal my stuff, man.
So older girl, meaning you were what, 5 or 6, and she was like 13, 12.
I know she was taller than me.
Okay, she might have been 7 or 8.
She was a few grades above me.
Mhm.
And she, in her mind, she was probably taking care of me like a little brother, like, oh, here's my little, like a little friend brother or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, I was totally into her stuff. I don't know what her problem was. I was like ready for marriage, right?
Oh man,
it was good stuff.
Yep. Nope. I never had anything like that either. I mean, man, what do you compare that to? I don't know. As I get older, I get louder and I talk more. But as a kid, I was pretty quiet. I didn't say a heck of a lot to folks, around me. So, I had a couple of friends at school who happened to live in my neighborhood. I was lucky enough to have kids in my neighborhood who were in the same grade, maybe one grade above or one grade below. And, so I had my friends.
Yeah.
But everybody else, they were just kind of there. They were background noise. I didn't really pay much attention. And I wasn't interested in girls at all. I had, my army men and my BB gun and all that other good stuff. I was out, on my bikes and all that other kind of stuff. And I didn't, that's what I wanted to do. So, walking to and from school, it was just, my father wouldn't let me take my bike to school because I'd already had 2 bikes stolen, none of them from school, but I'd already had 2 bikes stolen. So my dad's like, no, you can walk home and your bike stays in the garage. Okay, fine. And it was that way until I was, in junior high school.
Did you ever have your bike with the chain that you'd wrap around the body of and then you'd take that chain, and if you went biking somewhere, you'd lock it up against, a pole or whatnot,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And after the second bike got stolen, I didn't go anywhere on my bike without a lock and a padlock.
I mostly had a lock and the chain, and one day, which changed the way I saw things, it was a teachable moment. I went to a candy store here in Sweetwater, and I stopped the bike. I'm a little kid, and I know my combination, and I lock it against this pole, and I go and get candy and this and that, and then I come back out, and the chain is not around the pole. It's just hanging there on the side. And I look at the pole and I look up, and the pole is yay big.
Uh-huh.
And whoever did it just lifted it, pulled out the thing, but left me the bike, like saying,
They just hung it up.
so I learned to look at the actual structure of the pole to make
Yeah.
sure that there's no way to, yeah.
Uh-huh. No, my bikes got stolen. One was out of a friend's front yard, and the other was in front of a little convenience store that we used to go get because they had this huge rack of penny candy. And I mean, if you had a nickel, you could go in and you could just, get sick. So, um, but no, for some reason, he did not want me to ride it to school and lock it up on the rack.
He didn't want to get stolen, probably.
Yeah, well, he got tired of replacing bicycles. And it wasn't long after that I started building bicycles on my own. I would buy parts, and, a guy down the street had a bunch of bike parts in his backyard. And he saw me carrying a frame. He's like, "You building a bike?" Yep. Well, I got all these parts. I mowed lawns for that guy for like 2 months in exchange for those bike parts.
That's awesome.
And, I did stuff like that. So I built so many bikes. I can't tell you how many I've built. And that was one of my first lessons in selling stuff, because I would, spend maybe $6-7 and then sell a bike for $20. And when you're a kid, when you're 9-10 years old, $20 is a lot of money.
Oh, heck yeah, dude.
And in fact, I think we were talking about that once in a hangout a few days ago, that when you're that young, back then, $20 is a lot of money. And the first $20 bill I got in my hand that was actually mine, it was huge. I was rich, So
How long has it been since you rode a bike?
Probably about 7 years. I sold a bunch of bicycles when we moved up here because we couldn't take them. I had no room for them. So yeah, it's been about 7 years.
I think it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bike. It's like a mountain bike type thing,
Mm-hmm.
but just the same. You could ride around town.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I am going to start biking. It'll take me from A to B, and I can sweat a little bit and maybe lose some weight with it, and it'll be a good habit, which I still believe to this day. So I said, okay, so I pulled the bike, and I got the compressor out and just sat there. My dog's sitting there and stuff, and I'm pumping air into it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd been sitting out for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it went boom.
Oh,
it was rotted,
mm-hmm.
and it just blew. But the sound was like shell shock, dude. I pushed back, and it was like complete deafening of one side of my ear, and there went the bike riding, dude.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Well, in fact, we do both have one bike up here. I got a Specialized Hard Rock in storage, and hers is God, I can't remember what brand hers is, but we both have bicycles up here. We just don't use them. I mean, I don't know why. I just kind of lost interest. But the town we lived in down in Nevada was wide open. We were out in the middle of nowhere, and you could jump on a bike, and you can, heck, driving down to the end of our road was 2 miles, and maybe a car would pass you because,
Was it a straight shot?
Yeah, it was just a straight shot. Uphill going one direction, then downhill the other direction. And we'd go off into the desert and ride around and do this kind of, that kind of things. They're both mountain bikes, but we haven't done that since we've moved back up here. And I'll be honest with you, I don't miss it. I'm getting too old for that kind of stuff,
Yeah. Well,
So,
I mean, walking's an option too, right?
yeah, and I do as little of that as possible. If I could fit it in the house, I would drive to the kitchen. I would,
Well, we used to have all across, the city, you'd see in each house a bunch of bikes just tossed on the front lawn, just scattered, and you knew that that's where all the kids were at.
Yep.
And we would bike, like, let's say, I'd get up, grab the bike. Mom, I'm going to go out to Ernie's house, let's say. maybe I wouldn't end up there. It could
Mhm.
be George's house, Ernie's house. It could be anything, right?
Yeah.
But that's my destination. So I'd tell her where my destination was, and you'd be biking, and you had no connection to your friends other than the phone. I'd
Mm.
bike over to Ernie's house, and sometimes you'd bike over, and he lived on like the third story, and I'd look up, and if whatever sign that there was nobody there, sometimes I'd carry the bike up and whatnot. And if they weren't there, then you'd bike to the next person's house. Sometimes you'd see the bikes over there and you say, "Oh, that's where they're at," and you'd go.
Mhm.
And it was a fun thing to be able to do, to just travel by a bike, and you'd be hauling butt. You go ying 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 ying. I don't know if you remember, like you push
Oh, yeah.
down, and you'd be zooming down the sidewalk,
Mhm.
and you'd end up and they'd be doing whatever, and there you'd be.
Yep.
Nowadays, like I've mentioned before, you see no kids in
Yep.
this area. Zilch.
That's right. That's
Zippo.
right. Yeah. Did you ever, now thinking back to that, you knew where your friends are based on the bicycles out in the front yard. Did you ever go, oh, okay, they're all over at Joey's house, and you get up and you see that you recognize people's bikes. So
Mhm.
you know who was there. Okay, Tony's here and Joey's there and Dennis is there and this. Oh man, Eric's there. I hate Eric. I'm going home.
Yeah.
You see that one bike and it's like, oh man, not him.
Yeah.
I'm going home, or go
Yeah.
somewhere else. Base your decision on whether you wanted to hang out with these guys or not based on who was there,
Oh, yeah.
before you walked in the door. So,
Well,
oh
one
man.
time this one guy comes up, years, like I was much younger. He comes up, he's one of the older kids on the block,
Mhm.
like kids that were like the rockers, right? They'd wear the rock t-shirts. We were just like little kids looking up to these people. He came in, "Hey man, you want this bike?" And I looked at it, it was a mongoose,
Uh-huh.
and it was spray painted in black, probably to cover the fact that it belonged to somebody else they'd stole. And I was like, "Oh, it's awesome!" And I wanted the mongoose. I said, "Okay." I don't know what I traded for it, but I did have in the back of my mind suspicion that it was totally stolen. But I couldn't. He didn't say it was stolen. I'm a little kid. I'm like, I want this mongoose. It was crappy spray paint, by the way, but they did a good job of covering up whatever was underneath. And I got the. There was a lot of that. So there were bike thieves back in the day.
Oh God, there were bike thieves all over the place. Like I said, I had 2 stolen from me, so I'm well aware of that. And we're talking about the San Francisco Bay Area in the 60s. That bike could have been anywhere. Those bikes could have gone anywhere.
Oh yeah.
But God, when I think back about it, the way we are today versus the way we were back then, we were all over that town. I mean, I lived in a town called Fremont, California, and it's spread out. It's across the bay and to the south of the San Francisco Peninsula. And we were really spread out, and going 10, 15 miles to the other side of town to go over to the drag strip from where we lived up the canyon was nothing to us. I mean, just hop on the bikes and go. We were bicycle motocross was just starting to take off in the Bay Area. So we're looking at, I was 12, maybe 13, and BMX bikes were brand new. They hadn't really caught on.
Yeah.
The squatter frame, the shorter frame and the taller seat post and the reinforced handlebars, they were really just getting going. And they opened up a track. Oh God, it was about 10, 11 miles from the house. And we thought nothing of going. And I built bikes just specifically for that. Heavier gauge spokes and this, that, and the other. And just, I built bicycles just for, and when I say BMX, I don't mean, the doing tricks and, bouncing around on the back wheel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about racing on a motocross track for motorcycles. And, you'd get 5, 6 kids together and somebody yelled go and off we'd go. And then they would have organized races. I never won anything because I wasn't good enough. I wasn't fast enough. But that didn't mean I didn't get out there and have fun. I was always doing stuff like that. So no, I didn't have no time for no girls. So
if you remember also, I don't know about your area, but it was a very simple thing. Our destinations were we'd decide to go to the candy store or the corner shop, whatever, or the comic book store, really, or go play at someone's house. I mean, that's basically the whole thought process that was in our brains.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing we did that I've talked to a bunch of people and I've never heard something similar, but during the 80s, there was this thing called the ninja and karate like explosion, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which I think had its roots in the 70s and earlier, but
Yeah.
in the 80s, they came out with a bunch of movies, American Ninja, which were, looking back, are pretty lame, but just the same, we loved them as kids, dude. So one friend came up to me one time. I think it was my friend John. I've shared the picture one time with you last night with you guys. And my friend John says, "Hey, dude, we're gonna tonight or this afternoon, tonight or whatever, we're gonna play Ninja Hunt." What do you mean Ninja Hunt, man? He says, "Yeah, we dress up and cover up, and Sweetwater is our territory. We have to go fight. It's like hide and go seek, but ninja style. And you can get weapons, and you can, like what? I don't know, whatever, light bulbs or something." And my mind lit up, no pun intended. I remember my dad's shed. I went in. And by the way, I took like a shirt and covered my face and like the door. I went into the shed and grabbed a pack of light bulbs and I stuffed them in my a bunch of light bulbs and other things, right? But I remember the light bulbs. And anytime I'd encounter a friend, I'd grab a light bulb and I'd smash it on the floor in front of him, not towards his face, but enough to bam. And that was like I killed them, right? Like that. We did this all throughout Sweetwater, up second stories into people's property. We were a nightmare, dude.
Oh man. No, we didn't have anything of that, but the martial arts things, I mean, we had the Bruce Lee movies.
Yeah.
Enter the Dragon and all that. And then which kind of morphed into Chuck Norris.
Oh yeah.
And then kind of got into the era that you're talking about, and I kind of grew out of it and went away from it, and I didn't really care about it anymore. But I never did the that sounds like fun, the ninja fight thing. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. And if you found a friend, like you're climbing up the stairs and he's because we have these, and we still have, where it's like 2 stories and you have stairs coming up one side and the other that meet across the second floor. And if you had a friend coming up the other side and you had the weapon and he did not, you'd race over to get, and you'd throw that light bulb, even if you're at the second in front of somebody's door. It didn't matter, dude. It was a nightmare, but it was fun.
No.
Super fun, dude. So, yeah.
No, I never played anything like that, but it does sound like an absolute blast. We had a game, and I don't even remember where I learned it. It was called Sardines. It was kind of the opposite of hide and seek. You're talking about hide and seek, but with weapons.
Yeah.
And what it was the person who was it, everybody else kind of hid and counted and let the person who was it go hide.
Okay.
And everybody just split up and you try to find the person who was hiding. And when you found them, you hid with them.
Okay.
And the last person to find the guy, they were it the next time.
Oh, gotcha.
So there was a little bit of trying not to be it, but then again, trying to be it so that you could find a better hiding spot. Now you had to be picky because, we had some, little guys playing with us who could crawl underneath the car. Well, you ain't going to get a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds hiding underneath the car.
Right.
But, you find some kid hiding back behind a hedge. And when you get 12 or 13 people back there trying to hide behind a hedge or something like that, it gets a little bit difficult. So you had people that would just kind of hang back and wait for the crowd to show. Okay, there's a bunch of them over there. There they are. So,
question for you.
It was fun.
When you were a kid, I don't know if I've ever asked you this question before. When you were a kid, did you ever totally break something that was of the family, your dad's, your mom's, and it was like a total nightmare situation that you remember to this day?
I broke a lamp that my mother bought. Okay, when I was real little, before my brother was born. My mother was a hotel maid,
Okay.
and they sold some of their furniture off. And my mother bought a couple of lamps. And it was about maybe 2 years later. So it was before my brother, still before my brother was born. I don't even remember what I was doing, but I knocked the lamp off of the table and it broke. They were ceramic, kind of vase-like looking things. And my mother sat down and cried because she had earned the money to buy that with her first job. And I'm a little kid, and I see, my brother's 4 years older than me, so I was 2 or 3, and seeing mom cry was weird to me. And I thought she got injured or something like that. I really thought she was hurt, so I was scared.
Yeah.
And so it's okay, it's all right, but look what you did, and this, that, and the other. Then finally I understood. Well, my dad, he hollered at me a little bit about it, and I still to this day don't remember how I broke it. I don't know if I turned around and elbowed it or what.
Yeah.
But he was able to glue it back together.
Oh, wow.
But you want to talk about a loss of innocence, man, or something like that. They finally got rid of those things. Oh man, I was married to my first wife, so I was grown and gone. But up to the time I left to go into the Army in 82, every time I saw that damn lamp, I could see that one little glue line that was up close to the top where Dad didn't quite glue it all that well. And there was a couple little drops of glue there.
Yeah.
And that always still bugged me. So, I mean, we're talking that sat there for, 20 something years. So, but it always bugged me. I would look over and I would see that and go, man, I did that. And Dad had to fix it. Man, but what got me the most was my mom crying, because that just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Moms and dads don't cry. Why are you crying? Did you hurt yourself?
Wow, dude. Yeah, that's that. Yes. And you remember because you guys kept it for 20 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know whatever happened to him. Like I said, I went into the Army, me and my first wife, we were gone for about a year and a half. We came back to visit, and they had moved into a new house and had new furniture. So I don't know whatever happened to them. I don't know if they gave them to somebody or sold them or threw them out. But
Upgrades.
Yeah, just total remodel on everything, just about.
How about rebellious, rambunctious, fighting authority of your parents, or any authority in general as a kid?
Oh God, yes, that was my watchword. I mean, Dad would say, "Don't do that," and of course, that was the first thing I wanted to do. They would tell me, "Don't go down to the creek," and where would they find me a half an hour later? Down at the creek. I didn't even know there was a creek there.
It would be better off
constantly did that.
Yeah, they'd be better off telling you, "All right, son, you must go to the creek," and then
they'd be better off just not saying anything, because half of the things that I did, I got the idea from somebody else. And I was always that kid, 2 kids up on the roof. One of them's there. Here, Mark, here's an umbrella. Jump off. It'll work. I was always that kid going, who needs the umbrella? I didn't care. I wanted to have fun. So, if something sounded interesting to me, yeah, let's go do it. Let's go shoot each other with BB guns. Ow, that hurt. Yeah, well, that's why you don't do that. Always ready for a good time.
When I was very little, talking about that, rebellious, and I was very little, like probably still wearing Pampers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an example of the human something. I can't even define it, but I don't know what I did, that I was at home, that my dad got really angry, and my mom was like, she was angry too. I did something. And he said, "Come here right now." And I was like, "No." And he said, "Get over here." And I'm like, I would assume, I can't remember this part. I just remember what I did, but I would assume that him saying "come here" with that kind of attitude wasn't very, like it wasn't a situation where I'm like, oh, that's a welcoming, inviting situation. So I wanted to stay away. And he walked up to me, right? And I'm like, no. And I climbed up on the couch saying, uh, like like my equivalent of cursing back there was like saying, caca, pee pee, boo boo. And I kept going round in circles in Pampers saying that to them. And my dad took off his belt. He didn't go to hit me, but he took the belt off. He's like, come over here, come over. And I'm like running around in circles. And I was rebelling against whatever it is. I don't even remember. But the point is, at some point, he stopped and he just walked away. He's like, screw this. And he just walked away and let me. And I stood there, it's over. And so, it's funny how the human spirit from an early age, you're testing boundaries, It's part of humanity, Anything like that as a kid?
Oh, well, my brother was the more rebellious one. And here's the one that sticks out in my mind was, I would do stuff and then take the punishment and then maybe not do it again, but maybe I would. It just depends on what it was. But my brother was more rebellious and more defiant in a direct way. I was always kind of, sneak off to go down to the creek when I wasn't supposed to be there.
Right.
My brother would turn around and make sure they were looking as he walked down there, that kind of thing. So the one that stood out in my mind was if we ever swore in front of my mother, she would do the old proverbial wash your mouth out with soap. Now, I don't mean she'd stick a bar of soap in your mouth and go blah, 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 blah. No, she stuck the bar halfway into your mouth and clamped your chin up and drug off shavings. You'd have soap caked up on the backside of your teeth.
You had soap in your mouth as a kid?
Oh my God. Too many times. Well, the worst one I ever saw was she did that to my brother, and I don't even know what he said. But she drugged that bar of soap off of his mouth. He looked her in the eye. Now, I was 10, so he was 6. He looked her in the eye and went and blew a bubble and blew a bubble.
Oh, he was rebellious, all right.
And I got the hell out of Dodge because I didn't want to witness nothing. I just like, oh, it's really going to get going. And I don't want her thinking I had anything to do with it.
Boy.
I scooted down that hallway and I was in the backyard. I don't know what happened after that. And I can say that's plausible deniability. But he looked her in the eye and blew a bubble. Like there.
That is serious stuff, dude.
And she was, what? Like that. And I just, whoa, gone. And I could hear in the background, I could hear her reach out and grab him by the hair and drag him off into his bedroom. But I was out the back door before anything else happened, man. I didn't want to witness nothing because there's always collateral damage.
Oh. So I also experienced the soap situation. And in school, I think I said a bad word or something or other. I don't remember what it was. And this was a private school. I went to private school up until some point during like the last year or prior year of elementary, whatever that is. But I spent a few years in private school. And whichever school, I don't remember this, but I remember that the teacher said, go. She says, Eloy, get up and go to the bathroom and wash your mouth out with soap. And there was a freaking bar of soap. And I went to the bathroom. Nobody was watching. There was no, anything other than she said, go and do this. And being a little kid, I went to the bathroom with no force. I grabbed the soap. I looked in the mirror and I went, cook. And I'm like, and it didn't dawn on me as a little kid not to do what the teacher had said to do. So you see, innocence and all that. So I actually did that. I actually got the bar of soap and I put it in and said, this doesn't taste right. I'm like, oh no. And so I said, that's good enough. And I put it down and I washed my mouth and then I returned back.
Yeah. That's funny, man. That's funny. Well, teacher said.
But who can tell a little kid? See, that's the thing about little kids that
Yeah.
you say, "Hey, do this," and you're liable to that
Yeah,
he or she's gonna do that.
exactly. Especially if they're in a position of authority over you, you know.
Yeah. So adults aren't always. Who knows why she would have said that? And would she have assumed that I wouldn't have done that? Who knows? You
I don't
know?
know. I don't know how long you'd been in her class, but I guess she figured, well, his kid's got integrity. That's doing the right thing when I know somebody is looking. Maybe he'll go do it. Me, I'd have been gone. They wouldn't have seen me the rest of the day.
Oh, I had no choice. It's one of those public schools.
Yeah,
You're on lockdown. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
The
yeah. I
nuns.
got it.
You know how they say the nuns always. I never
Mhm.
had any issues with the nuns at
Yeah,
all. So well,
yeah.
I mean, do we have any? I think this is a good place to.
Well, I did have the one little thing that I would like to try to do every time,
Right.
every episode here. Well, just a little experiment to see if I can freak Eloy out, or maybe come up with something that he probably didn't know. Try to blow his mind. But have you ever heard of a man by the name of Dr. Stephen Gould?
The last name I've heard, I can't say that I could bring anything to memory. So.
Okay. Well, he was a semi-controversial figure. He was a evolutionary biologist,
Okay.
and very, very, very intelligent man. He was, like I said, evolutionary biologist, a paleontologist, and a historian. And one of his fields of study that he went into for a little while, he started getting into marine biology. And after years of study, he came to the conclusion that there is no such thing as a fish.
Okay.
That's just it. There's no such thing as a fish.
But that's his conclusion.
That's his conclusion. That we call them fish, but there's no such thing.
What are they?
Well, they're in different families because, like, even though they all swim in the water and they all have gills, they're completely and totally unrelated. Like, sharks are completely and totally unrelated to a salmon or to a guppy or to a trout. They have, like, a trout will have more in common with a camel than it will with a stingray.
Interesting.
Or a lungfish has more in common with blackbird than it has with a squid. That these are different species altogether that are absolutely unrelated to one another. So to just call them fish is just incorrect. There's no such thing as a fish.
Well,
I mean, it's not exactly earth shaking, but when you stop and think about it, it's like, okay.
I think that so remember that one time that said, "Oh, I never got to the thing that I wanted to." I had something similar, but the fish wasn't part of it. It was the banana and the human being.
Yeah.
Human beings and bananas share a lot of DNA with each other,
Right.
and not only that, there's other things.
Right. Oh yeah. The things that make us human is just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit
Mm-hmm.
of the DNA that we all possess. People will say, well, we're 95% monkey. Okay, fine. But the case could be made that we're 78% daffodil
Mm-hmm.
because we share that much DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an insane thing, but yeah. So
Yeah.
that is a shocking thing, although I have delved into that a little bit, but still, what does the audience think? Let us know. We have a podcast coming out every Tuesday, and it's Trampled Underfoot Podcast over on Spreaker. So you go over there, you can catch our podcast. But we do have a website, and that's trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And you can catch our episodes every Tuesday there, as well as
we have a Facebook page. We post links to our current episode over there. We also post links to past episodes over there. If you head back over to our website, every episode we've ever done is listed over there. You hit that little link up at the top that says Wayback Machine. It'll take you back. Every episode we've ever done is there on trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And also right here on YouTube, where we record our podcasts every Tuesday evening at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, for those of you out here on the left coast with me. And come join our reindeer games. Come sit over here in the live chat with Tracy Keaton or Patrick's Workshop or Frankie CNC and Woodworking, or Greg the Snow Crusher, Jim Dockrell, John from Be Happy Woodworking and Honeybees. Thank you all for joining us. And I know Steve Nealon, webmaster to the stars from Harneal Media, was over there, who, by the way, sponsors TrampledUnderfootPodcast.com and does an excellent job and looks good doing it.
All right. That'll cover it. We'll catch you guys next week. Let us know what you think in the comments. Go over to the Facebook page. See ya.
Take care. Thank you for joining us, y'all.